5 o'clock. Do we have everyone?
I haven't seen Felicita yet.
Yeah.
All right, there, it looks like she just logged on.
Okay, great. So it's 5 o'clock. I will now call to order the THPRD Board of Directors work session for November 10th, 2021. Jessica, can you please call roll?
Tia Ping.
Here.
Heidi Edwards.
Here.
Barbie Miner.
Here.
Felicita Monteblanco.
Here.
Alfredo Moreno.
I'm here.
Okay, and then I think we will be working on our board values.
You bet. We're going to have Holly kind of run us through the front end and then board discussion.
All right, good evening, Board of Directors. I'm Holly Thompson, your Communications Director, and it's my privilege to be with you this evening. I'm just representing the management team because we had the privilege of listening to your last work session where you discussed your values and the organizational values and your priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. We did our best to listen really closely, and you had a very rich discussion, and we were sitting on our hands with lots of ideas and energy and really pleased with what you were coming up with. And we took some great notes and we saw some opportunities to align a lot of what we heard. So we wanted to offer you a reflection. It is just a starting point to help us hopefully finalize these things. But this is really your opportunity and your work session. And so this is not, there's no, you're not going to hurt our feelings. If you have edits or reactions to this, we really want this to be represent and reflect your views. So in terms of the values, I think we heard great alignment and clarity that our values continue to be centered on equity. We had the word changing to really clarify that second value was on environmental stewardship. So we added that clarity from the board discussion. And then one slight edit to this one, this last value used to say community vision, and management team members pointed out when we talk about it and when we share it with the community, we really talk about it as a commitment to the community vision. And we felt those were an important component of that to add in. It's really honoring that we're following through and respecting the community input that we received through that. So that commitment word was very important to us. The next section is where we really took some liberties in combining some of what we heard during your discussion. First, I just want to highlight that in the document we shared with you, we tried to articulate really clearly that budget priorities are just that, budget priorities to help guide our investments for the next fiscal year. So there might be things that we talk about at a board level or at a management team level, like new registration system, something really important and something we want to keep our eyes on, but it's down the line. It's really not something that we're going to work on in the next fiscal year. So we really need those budget priorities to be honed in on what are our fiscal priorities into the planning for the 22-23 fiscal year. So we saw the opportunity. You had a wonderful, rich discussion around employees and technology. We suggested putting those together. We felt that it really met the spirit of what we had in the previous budget priority. And we really saw the alignment of how important investing in technology as a means to provide tools for our staff to better serve the public is really a wonderful alignment. It's about investing in our people, making sure we're attracting and retaining wonderful talent, but also providing the tools that we need and keeping up with technology investments to make sure we're serving the public the way that we should be. That gave us the space to follow Thomas's rule, right? He said we only get 3. He was very clear. And even though Doug reminded us Thomas won't be at this work session today, we know it's important that we honor our commitment to Thomas and keep it to 3. But we felt by aligning the technology and employees, it really allowed us to then honor the discussion that you were having, which we really felt and the management team was really reflective of where we're at. We're still rebuilding out of the pandemic. We want to rebuild programming back to where it was, if not better. As your discussion reflected, as we had to prioritize, we really invested in our access for all in our free programming work. We really worked with our community partners on grant opportunities to continue that work, and that became the priority. And as you all said, if that's what we're doing, it really is our priority. It should be reflected there as well. And that allowed us to retain that final fiscal priority focused on our long-term planning for the future for natural areas, facilities, and trail needs. So with that, that's kind of just an overview of our work at the management team level, of listening to your rich discussion and offering up kind of a next iteration. Our goal is to give you the time to reflect on this in this work session, and hopefully finish the work session with a document that we can all embrace, endorse, and say we got it done, so we can use this information to guide the development of our fiscal year budget for 22-23. And with that, I'll turn it your way.
Holly, do you have it, or does Jessica, maybe, do you have that documentation to share so it's on the screen for all of us to look at the same time?
I do. And I even have it in Word so we could live edit.
Nice, thank you. All right, so the floor is open for discussion. Does anybody want to start? I want to give the floor maybe to Barbie since she wasn't here the last.
Well, thank you. Sure, yeah, I will jump in. And first and foremost, just really appreciate my colleagues giving me an opportunity to weigh in here. Of course, unfortunate circumstances, didn't know things were going to go the way that they were, and to miss this conversation, I was really disappointed. So first, I just want to express my gratitude for holding up just so that I could have an opportunity to share my feelings and really kind of reflect. And I think what's interesting from my point of view is that in having the opportunity and the advantage of watching this back, I really got to, I think, absorb the conversation and kind of see from beginning to end an evolution where I don't think if I was actively participating would have maybe had the same observations. And so just want to share, I think, thank you, Holly, and your team for synthesizing on the budget priorities. I think I'm feeling really good about the synthesis that you found there to kind of collapse employees with the technology and being able to emphasize that work on the access for all side of the house. I think the piece that I would love for us to just revisit the conversation, and I do just want to share my point of view. Director Monteblanco had brought up at the very beginning, getting a little bit more specific when we say equity and adding that component of racial equity to our values. And what I found really interesting is that the pre-word here on our second value was called out as sustainability. And the conversation, I think there were concerns that felt, well, when you say sustainable, are we talking about sustainable practices? Are we talking about sustainable finances? Are we talking about how we go out and source goods? Are we speaking about environmental stewardship? And it kind of forced us to step into a place where we needed to sharpen our pencil a bit. And I do feel that we should take a look at and evaluate that racial equity component. I think now is the time for us to be specific and to really stand in this in this value. I find for myself, often when we're right where we're feeling a little, where we start to say, well, then what do we mean? If are we leaving others out? If we start to narrow this in, then who are we leaving out? And I just find that ironic, because the flip side to that, as well as when we're centering racial equity, the point is to welcome those who have always been left out. And I think the wonderful work that we've seen with the recent revised equity statement, and of course the work in the visioning process, leads me to believe that we are being rewarded, we are being seen for the intentional work that we are doing. And I do just feel that there's an opportunity here, if we were to look at this through the same way that we needed to sharpen our view when we say sustainability, what do we really mean there? I feel that I'd love to have a conversation around what do we really mean when we say equity? And it quickly kind of moved to a yes or no. It's kind of, we specify racial equity or we leave it as is. And I'm curious that we've got wordsmiths, if there would be an opportunity for us to even do a yes and situation. So in the same way that we've got commitment to community vision, maybe the solve is saying equity with prioritization in racial equity. I'm not a wordsmith, but just something so that when we say that, we're really providing that North Star of what our aspirations are as a district. So just wanted to share that.
Do my other fellow board members have comments? I'm going to give us 10 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I can get on board with this with some sort of equity leading with race or something of that nature to I think it's okay. I think it's good to kind of spell out where you're I don't know, which one is your most urgent focus? And I would feel comfortable extending that equity statement I expressed in the last meeting, being very aware of if we just have equity, it can be seen as just overbroad, brush stroke that just kind of attempts to slap across and check a lot of boxes with one word. I would feel fine. I would feel comfortable. I would feel good about having some sort of equity, leading with race, or some better way to phrase it.
Heidi or Felicita?
I'm okay with that as well. But going back to, I think, previously when we were talking in our retreat, is not losing sight. And I agree, when we talk about equity, it can be seen as this broad brush statement, all encompassing. And I love the analogy of sharpen our pencils. That maybe it is that we define it a little bit more, but I don't want to lose sight of all of the other pieces of equity and access that we really try to champion, and out beyond race, whether it be for our queer community, our seniors, our and granted, we can't be all things to everyone, but I don't want to lose that as well, because I think it's critical to the work we do. So
I feel like I said, I mean, y'all know where I'm at. So I wanted this last month. But I also think I'm just so excited by these conversations. And I think Barbie's spot on about sharpening our pencil. And sometimes we're limited by definitions and words, because I get really stuck on, like, access is not equity. While it is a priority, they're not the same thing. And then I think our group is, this leadership team is, like, ready for the disability justice conversation, which is about those intersecting identities. And I have a lot to learn in this area. So anyway, thank you, Barbie, for pushing us.
So I agree, racial equity obviously is one of our main goals that we're doing. I still I feel like it's a little bit different than our sustainability. I feel like when we were talking about our sustainability, we were talking about multiple different subjects within the same thing. That was, the meaning was not broad, but the meaning was actually meaning different things, right? For different subjects, it was financial sustainability, environmental sustainability. So there was no direction, because we're pulling all these things into this. Equity, on the other hand, really, when I look at this, I almost envision like the staff looking at it and thinking, as we're creating programming and those kinds of things, like as a checklist. So like, is it equitable? And as much as obviously racial equity is very important, I want it to be above and beyond racial equity also. I don't want to lose sight of our LGBTQA. I don't want to lose sight of our veterans. I don't want to lose sight of our seniors. And I don't want to lose sight, you know, of all those different things that, you know, all of our autistic kids and those kinds of things. So I feel like when we put equity, it's to show that we are looking at any kind of barrier that could be, whether it's financial, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, all that kind of stuff needs to be taken into account, and we're committed to looking at that. And racial equity is a part of all of that. So that was my standpoint of why I didn't want to specifically call out racial equity.
If I could offer, the staff perspective on this is, I think that we're really comfortable with where you all are at, and we really like where you're at. And we agree that we want to lead with our value of leading with equity, but we're comfortable with an emphasis on racial equity, because it helps articulate where we're investing our approach and our resources and how we're addressing the issues. So I offer just this. Oh, I'm still sharing the document. Can you all see my screen? I didn't realize it was still up. So that's how I just edited it to say equity with an emphasis on racial equity. And that is how last year, I think, you know, sort of like we expanded that definition of sustainability as we wrote about it and communicated this in employee updates and in information with the public. That is how we helped articulate it and explain it with staff as well, that we wanted to lead with equity and emphasize racial equity within there. So you capture the whole, that we do care about all dimensions of equity, but we're making some intentional steps to lead with racial equity. And you see that through our investments in bilingual receptionists, talking wall events, more cultural events, more granting to community-based partners that are working with culturally specific organizations. And I think that captures what you're discussing, but also helps explain and articulate the investment choices that we're making as we try to move forward with our values.
You know, if I could add to the uniqueness of broadening and ensuring that we have communicated adequately, you know, this value is a great tool in working with the public. You know, as you're aware, we have received a few emails of people that desire clarity, shall we say. And the reality is this particular value statement has enabled us to have conversations both ways, meaning that certainly pressing into racial equity is a key emphasis, but at the same time, by ensuring that we have stated equity in general, it enables us to play in all these areas.
Does this wording feel okay?
Yeah, I'm in support of it myself, but
I am as well. I love a yes and.
I guess I just want to add that I don't know how to explain this, which is super helpful. Racial equity doesn't exclude anyone. It is inclusive. So when we think about seniors, we're thinking about our BIPOC seniors. That's what racial equity means. The folks that are the most, I hate the word marginalized. I don't have a better word after a 10-hour day. I'll come up with a better word. So I just want to make sure, and I know we're all on a journey and we all are like working on this, and I benefit from white privilege. I have work to do. But I appreciate the conversations that are happening very much.
Any more discussion?
And I like the language. Thank you.
I still prefer the general equity because I feel like I don't know. I feel like as a like I understand where we're coming from, and obviously like we know the intentions of everything, but I feel like when yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm struggling a little bit here.
Can I make a quick comment? And I don't know. So I as well prefer, standing with equity without the new emphasis on. Part of me wonders, and I don't know that this is something I think Thomas would just be turning over as he listens to this, but with a tagline or something that, I mean, because even environmental stewardship, there's so much in that package. If there's an opportunity for us to say, of course, with an emphasis on racial equity, but I feel like for me, it doesn't capture it doesn't capture what I see our mission is. I mean, our values are, yes, to forward and advance racial equity, but our values are also to forward and advance equity for all other marginalized communities.
And I kind of see it that just as a public standpoint, like if for some reason, like that racial, for some reason I don't identify with racial equity, I would hone in on it and say, okay, well, I have a disability and they don't really care about me, or I'm transgender and their focus is not on transgender stuff right now, or I don't know. I guess I'm in Heidi's. I think me and Heidi are kind of feeling the same kinds of things where I like the word equity. I think it means that value wise it means what it needs to mean to whoever reads it, that we are going to try to do everything we can to give you access and allow you to come and allow you to participate in any way, no matter what barriers you are facing. Alfredo.
Yes, and I've been working through this all myself, and I know we're up against it here pretty soon. But I think for me, it's a little. I mean, from a just straight, simple, quick words, I prefer equity, but I think this spells out. This gives us equity. This allows you to articulate a well, I don't know. I guess for me, it is a priority for me to see more Black and brown people in our parks and our trails and our facilities, not at the expense of others, but that is a specific priority for me. So that's where I'm able to get to this place of, yes, we can spell this out. I like having equity so that we don't just say it's all about race. I think part of you have to think about the audience who's going to receive it. And I do think if we just say racial equity is the value, we'll be in a position where we constantly have to explain, oh, but it also includes others, even though Felicia is correct in that it doesn't automatically not include others. So it just, I like having the kind of redundant equity with with an emphasis on racial equity or something like that, to say this particular group who is not, I don't know, who we don't see as often in our facilities, is a priority for us. So.
All right, we have 7 minutes and we still have to do the rest of the stuff. So Lisa and Barbie, I'll give you the floor, but we got to make it quick and make a decision. Go ahead, Barbie.
Felicia was first.
Okay, go ahead, Felicia. Sorry.
I was just going to say that these complications are very tricky, and I want to acknowledge that some of us might be getting triggered and have like some emotions in all this. And so I hope that in the future, like maybe this is, something we can do next year, is have a deeper discussion as a group around what are these definitions to us within the scope of our work. I like what you wrote, Holly. I'm totally okay with what you wrote. So thank you.
Well, now it's just gotten longer.
I know, it's gotten really long.
Okay, Barbie, do you have something to say?
I will be brief. I will echo. I thank you for so succinctly saying what you did, Alfredo. I do agree with you there. I think where I struggle in the big bucket is, yes, that can sound incredibly welcoming, and you can see it through the lens of, again, to whatever group you're identifying with. I think what breaks down for me, though, is that focus, is that clarity, is that element of how are we prioritizing, because we know that we simply cannot do it all. So I just wanted to end with that. And I also agree with Felista. I think the where we start, I tried to articulate at the beginning that I recognize. I'll just leave it at that.
If I could offer, I don't mean to overstep, but what I wanted to say is, wearing the communications and cultural inclusion team's hat, we're really comfortable with this language sitting with equity, with an emphasis on racial equity, because we really feel like we can articulate and explain. We are leading with our values of equity, and we care about all dimensions of equity, but we recognize the people that have been historically, left furthest behind and have most disparate impact are communities of color. And, the concept is, we need to invest more to help people where they're at access things. And that's the reason for the emphasis. It's about explaining the investment of effort and resources. And when I step back and I think about the great work that we're doing across the district, and so much that you all in your leadership positions are really advocating for, it really is about redirecting resources to the people that need it the most. And that really is explaining why we're emphasizing racial equity at this time. So I think it's a complicated thing. The more words you add, the worse it gets. So explaining we care about all dimensions of equity, but we're investing a little more in racial equity because we need to put more there to make a bigger difference, because the starting line is so much further back. Makes a lot of sense.
Sounds good. Do we need further discussion? Do I need a formal vote, Doug? I don't think so, right?
Just a
I
head
think
nod.
we have a, okay.
Yeah. Just a
I
consent.
do think we need to have a longer conversation at some point, though, regarding this, because our short retreat and our short review of this, I agree with you, Holly, what you're saying, but this is out there. Like, I wish we could further articulate this for our community. Like, we are all here collectively having these conversations. I feel like we have to have more conversation and find ways to really better articulate this to our community. It's clear to us, but I don't know that it's clear to others. And that's one of my concerns here. So I would love for us to come back to it. As Felicita said, it really, not to say no to this at this point in time, but we really need to engage in probably some deeper, longer, more intensive conversation to parse this out.
I want to make sure we're giving credit to our community, because we have a majority POC board that was elected by the people. So I don't think we're giving our community enough credit. I think this aligns with their values as well. While certainly some people have a hard time with this, and people are on their journey, and some people want
But we
to.
we don't have any queer members. We don't have any seniors. I mean, there's a lot missing from our board as well.
100%.
Although
I apologize.
I think we align in many respects with respect to where our values lie, but we do come, just with somewhat of a narrow perspective.
Yes,
So.
I 100%, Heidi. I apologize. What I meant is that I do believe we have a community that understands the value of racial equity, and that would cheer this on. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, we have a minute now.
Sorry.
Doug, I don't know what we need because we haven't even got to our budget priorities.
Yeah, we again, this is not, already we have better clarity from the beginning of the process. So we have enough staff-wise to continue to move forward. And we can reconvene on this subject area if you're comfortable saying we're fine with the document the way it is, and then we regroup. We can do that in the new year, shortly coming up. You know, we can dedicate, you know, Tia, you and I can work on, you know, timing wise to do another work session. I strongly suggest we leave Thomas out again. No, we can do whatever we need to do for that. We can bring Thomas back because I think it's a very healthy discussion.
Sounds good.
May I ask one clarifying question before we jump up? But
Yeah.
Are we good on the budget priorities? Do those feel right on?
Holly, just one comment. I just don't want to lose the employees in the messaging with technology. Like I like how it's framed, but if there are other opportunities to, you know, keep them separate but together, that's great, because I think our intent initially was to invest in our employees, their well-being, their professional development outside of the realm of technology. So just, you know, however that's to be, you know, advanced, great. But I understand why you put those together too.
Yeah, but your point is like, we mean employee development. We mean employees as standalone.
Yeah, and maybe it is in articulating it in those that statement below, something to the effect of employee well-being, professional development, to sort of further bring it beyond just technology. And like, we care about our people as people.
Okay, we're 1 minute over. Do you have to sign off and go to the other one? Yes. I would say I'm fine with everything else unless anybody else had any other issues that we wanted to bring up with Holly. I know Thomas would look at this and tell us we're totally wrong, but in the effort of time, we don't really have much time to do any more stuff. So, and Holly, you did such great work. Thank you for capturing everything that we talked.
Full
okay?
management team powwow. Everyone.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
All right, let's log on to executive. See you guys there.
You bet. Thank you.